All right, another podcast from the Michigan Institute of Athletics in Brighton, Michigan. Bill and I here have basically recorded a full podcast before the camera started. Before we started recording, and I was like, man, we need to be quiet, save the rest of this for the podcast. But right before we get into it, I want to shout out VetLife. Almost 4 years with this company. It's a 501c3 nonprofit company that supports veterans in our community. Veterans, when they transition from active duty back to civilian life, tend to struggle and have a very hard time. VetLife is there to ease that transition. If you want to reach out to VetLife, you can do so through Instagram or Facebook, or check out their website at vetlifetoday.org. So without further ado, Bill, normally I have people tell their whole background, their story, what built them into the people that they are today. But we've already done that. And anyone that wants to hear your background story, that episode exists. They can go back and watch it. Do you remember the episode number?
I do not. I actually listened to it again recently, but I don't remember what
it was. It was a great episode. I don't remember what episode it is, but you can find it on my channel. Today, we're going to have a very free-flowing conversation and dialogue. So, Bill, I'm going to kind of turn the floor over to you. You can pick up where you left off in your story. You could start with kind of like things that you're going through right now. We can cover almost any topic, and just go over things for our audience. So let's turn it over to you.
Yeah. So I do have to say, I know we talked about this earlier, but you're right. The next time we do this, I'm just going to mic up out in the parking lot. You can mic up back here, and we'll just start the whole thing as I walk in the door, because best conversations are had in this room. I'm going to tell you that right now. Really have enjoyed it. But if you go back, and I hope that you do go back and listen to the previous episode, you'll kind of hear a lot about my background. A lot of things have changed since we talked. I retired from Consumers Energy after 28 years there. My last 4 as the Veterans Program Manager, so all things veteran at Consumers Energy. It was amazing. I took the summer off. I learned to play golf. And then I went right back to work for the VFW National Home in Eaton Rapids, Michigan. I just want to get a little plug-in for them. They are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. They take care of our veterans. And when you talk about veterans transitioning from their life in the military to civilian life, or maybe they've been out for a few years and they've hit some bumps in the road, we are a 650-acre campus. We have 42 individual homes. We have on-site licensed daycare. We have an auditorium, a gymnasium. We teach music lessons. We have a veteran family resource center that brings all kinds of resources for veterans. And as veterans are transitioning or struggling, they will come to us. They go through a review process, and if they're accepted into our program, they will live on our campus in a house rent-free. They don't pay for any utilities. We have a 4-year program where we teach all the basic skills about budgeting, how to take care of your home, how to take care of your car, all the things people need when they get out into the civilian life. Now, having served in the military for 21 years myself, I can tell you, everything's paid for. You need something, you call somebody, and when you get out, it's scary because a lot of these things you don't know how to do. And the pay in the civilian world is a little different from the military. And so there's all these things that happen to military folks as they transition in. And so that's what the VFW National Home does.
When was the VFW National Home created? Because I've never even heard of that organization. It sounds like it's huge. I interviewed Kate Melcher. I don't know if you know who that is. She ran something similar, I think, in Ann Arbor, where they have like a home for veterans, when they're going through a surgery, their family can stay there. I don't remember the name of that organization off the top of my head, but how long has this been in creation?
So we're fairly new. We've only been around for 100 years. So yeah, I'm surprised. Sometimes I'm surprised that no one's heard of it, but it's in the middle of nowhere. It's in Eaton Rapids, but again, it's if you drive down Waverly Road, is almost as far south as you can go. On the left-hand side of the road as you're headed south, it's like this community in the middle of nowhere, and a donation was made 100 years ago to help take care of veterans. And the Pollitt family was the very first family to come stay there. And what had happened was the father in that family was a veteran, and he retired, and he was picking up his pension check in Detroit and got hit by either a bus or a train. And so he had a wife and I think 6 children, and at that time that retirement didn't carry on. And so now you suddenly had this family with no income and no home, and they came out to the VFW National Home, because at the time it was the National Home, but now we're the National Homes. and started out there, and that's how we grew. So we have houses that were built in the 20s all the way up through the 90s and early 2000s. So if you come visit us, and we encourage people to do that, you will see kind of that transition in the homes that are there.
Man, there's so many incredible programs that exist that are just missing like marketing and outreach and brand recognition, because I would have never known that even existed here in Michigan to even tell a veteran to look into until we've had this conversation. So many times people feel like lost. They don't know where to turn. They don't know what to do. Their life is in shambles. Veteran suicide is a massive problem because all of your problems are stacking up and you don't have the resources, you don't know where to turn, and there are these opportunities out there. But how is it that you get this to be a more widely known thing? Like, how could that have existed for 100 years? I ran a podcast that was sponsored by VetLife, and I didn't know about this until this moment in time. Do you guys, is that a focus now of your mission, is really trying to get people to know about it? And if so, like, how are you doing that?
Well, I think the key is about 2 years ago, we hired a new executive director, Mike Wilson, and I think you know Mike Wilson.
Yes.
I think he's been on your podcast.
Yes.
Yeah. So Mike Wilson is our executive director, and Mike is a visionary, and he knows how to motivate people, and he understands the need of a veteran because he himself is a veteran, and so it's really that tone from the top that is changing how we are. When he got there, not even half of our houses were full, and many of them were uninhabitable. We now have 42 homes and a waiting list. So the word is out there. But here's the cool thing. You don't have to live on campus to utilize our resources. If you are a veteran and you want to learn about getting your benefits from the VA, or maybe you want to file a claim, we have a VSO that comes in every Monday. A guy named Tom from the American Legion comes in every Monday and works with veterans. You can come out and you can utilize that service. We have a gentleman named Michael Spade, who works for Operation Job Ready Veteran. If you want to do a resume, or if you want to do some mock interview skills or whatever, he's there. You just call us. We'll set up an appointment. He comes in. These are all free of charge. And we are getting ready to put in a food pantry so that we can serve those veterans who need that.
So your goal is really to be like a one-stop shop for you have a little bit of everything that's necessary to put your life back together.
Absolutely. And I can't stress enough, free to the veteran. There are so many organizations out there that charge our veterans for some of these services, and we're going to do it for free. If there is a cost, we're going to cover it. We are working with the Volunteers of America. They have a peer support program. So we don't have on-site medical or on-site mental health, but Volunteers of America will sit down with a veteran, and they will assess, and then they will connect them with the resources. Not only that, they'll help them with the paperwork, and they'll make sure they get to the appointment. And those are the kinds of things that veterans need. I think many times we don't get the help we need because we don't understand the process, and we're afraid to stumble. And so we want to help you to not be afraid to stumble.
100%. I mean, at the end of the day, if you could take their military camaraderie and they got to show up for the veterans even in civilian life, and all your boys came over and said, no, we're going to this appointment, or we're going to show up at this thing, or you don't know how to solve this, we're going to tackle it as a unit together. Everyone would do it and everyone would get it done because you have that support system. When that gets ripped out of your life and you feel like you're alone and you want to be viewed as a strong soldier, you have your life in order, you know how to get things done, it leaves people with a lot of despair. They don't know where to turn. They don't know how to solve their problems. And a lot of the times that just makes you shut down more, which then produces less results, which makes your life worse. And then, problems compound. And eventually, if you stack enough weight on people, they break. That's just how life works. You actually alluded to something just a minute ago that I don't know why it clicked for me for the first time the way you said it now, but you said like when we get these veterans, we start educating them on like how to take care of your house payments, how to have a car payment, how to do these things. Our society needs to do such a better job at preparing kids how to actually function in the world. I was sitting down last night doing polynomials, I probably said that wrong, with my fiance's son, trying to help him figure out how to sort these problems. Never for a single second of my entire adult life have I ever had to encounter anything like what he was learning to solve last night. You know what I do have to deal with? Taxes. You know what I had to learn how to do? Get a mortgage, go through lending, find services in the community. I wanted to start a business. I wanted to learn how to run invoices. We don't teach people so many of the basic skills that that are necessary to be a competent human being as an adult, unless you're just going to mindlessly, like, nothing against this, but if you're a factory worker, like, you might just have to learn how to do one specific repeatable task every day. And hopefully that doesn't break you mentally to just, the monotony. But we are not setting people up to have an easy transition so that if you choose to go the route of military, when you come out, you don't have any of these skills. Right. But luckily there are intermediaries or, programs like yours that it's like, hey, despite this problem that exists, we can help you through the process. We can be your battle buddy. We can be, the people that have your back while you get on your feet. Because it is daunting. When you take on a new task, like, I remember, just a short story, the first time when I decided I was going to open a business, when I decided I was going to start this dream, someone told me, well, you have to open an LLC, you have to open a corporate structure and file your articles of organization. It took me a couple weeks to even take on that task because I'm like, I don't know what that means. I don't know how to do that. I don't even know where to start. What do you mean your articles of organization? Nowadays, that is so, like, I can file you an LLC in 15 minutes, have it all done, all the paperwork. We can have an operating agreement. We can have a business structure laid out. I can show you the website, but you don't know what you don't know. And most of the time when you don't have the answers, you just shut down. Right. So it's like, if you don't have the answers, do you at least know where you can turn to get the problems answered? And when there's companies like yours and nonprofits and these programs, if we can just get the word out, it's like, hey, you don't have the answers because you weren't trained to have the answers. You were trained to be a soldier, but we can help you fill in the things that you need to integrate back into society, to take care of yourself, to take care of your family, to feel like you matter, etc.
Well, I find it interesting that you bring up factory worker because anyone that goes back and listens to our initial conversation, when I was a kid, like, my life was total chaos, and my father worked for Oldsmobile. He worked the line, and he learned a skill, and he used that skill every day for 30 years at the factory. But even for him, no one ever taught him how to do a checkbook or to make sure things were paid on time. And so many times our heat would be turned off or we would be evicted. And not because we didn't have money, but because no one in my family had the skills to be financially sound. And if you look at your overall well-being from a holistic perspective, that financial pillar is huge, because if you're not financially sound, that affects your mental health. It can affect your physical health. It can affect all of your relationships. And so, fortunately for my sister and my brother and myself, we were able to learn those skills because we did not want to end up in the chaos that was our childhood. So, when people say, oh, that bad thing happened, that's awful. No, that bad thing happened good. You know why that's good? Because my brother, my sister, and myself all graduated college. We all got our degrees. We all had really good careers. We were all very successful. And guess what? My children, my nieces and my nephews, college degrees, skill sets, they're all very successful. And that is because my dad was not successful in that one area. And I thank him for that, because I would have just passed along those bad habits, or I would have passed along his lack of knowledge to my children. But I did not want to live like that. And so I'm thankful that my childhood was like it was, because it's made me the man who I am today.
Something about you, though, was awake enough to recognize that, like, this isn't it. This is not good. This is struggle. I don't want to live like this. What skills are lacking in my father's life or in our environment that is forcing us to live under these conditions? And you made necessary adjustments. A lot of people, hard times do create strong men and strong women if you use those hard times correctly.
Correct.
If you turn lead into gold type deal, right? Like, if you learn how to, I don't want it to be like this, so what can I figure out from these situations to better my life? But a lot of people will go, well, this is what I'm meant to be. I know a couple kids that I'm going to use one kid in particular. He grew up in the trailer park. Terrible examples all around him, drugs all around him, getting jumped, getting beat up. Like, some of his stories are pretty dark on what he endured as a child. Father was never in the picture. He got to 18 years of age before he met his father. And one time I was sitting out on the bench with him and having a conversation, trying to get him to kind of create a vision for his life and envision himself a couple years down the road and, like, envision himself being successful. And one day, I'll never forget this moment for the rest of my life. We're sitting next to each other on the bench, and this kid, Spencer, he goes, James, do you think that at any point, like, I could buy my own trailer? And, like, those words hurt me so bad. Like, it snapped me awake in that moment. And I was like, what do you mean your own trailer, Spencer? Like, why are you doing all of this work? Why are you sacrificing all these hours in the gym and you're being consistent, you're developing work ethic, and you're persevering through difficulty, and you're learning new skills, and you're challenging yourself, and you're networking with good people? Why are you doing all that if you are aiming at taking your family to the environment that damn near broke you? You're not going to have your own trailer one day. You're going to have your own home one day. You're going to have a beautiful home with a family. You're going to look at the life that you were given as a child, and you're going to say, thank God I experienced that because I developed because of it, but I will never allow my children or my future to be in that. And I witnessed, Bill, in his eyes, a spark of like, wait, you think I could have my own house one day? And now, just recently, we went to Men's Warehouse. He bought himself his first custom suit. He just passed his real estate course, 40-hour course. He's going to be working for Keller Williams Real Estate here in Brighton. He's the like number 3 ranked amateur fighter in the entire state of Michigan. He's just fought in a main event in Florida, won a title. He's got a great girlfriend in his life. He's being a role model for his brother. But there was a limiting belief that was planted in that kid's brain from his childhood where he didn't go the same way as you initially, where he thought, this is what I am cut out for. This is what life has in store for me. I'm not as smart as other people. I'm not as naturally gifted. He almost had a like, that's where I belong mentality. Mm-hmm. What was it about you, Bill, that made you say, despite all of these things, because most people, they look up to their father as their hero. They look at their father and say, like, that is the type of man I want to be in life. You went, respect and love for my father. I will not live like that. What caused that, Bill?
So I do want to say one thing about my father. His work ethic was amazing. That guy worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. If they called him to come in, he came in and worked extra shifts. So all of us kids got that work ethic. So that's one way that I did want to be like him. I just didn't know it, right? But so it wasn't like I just became an adult and was successful. I mean, I've been married. I'm on my 3rd marriage. I learned from each one of my failed marriages, but I was not financially responsible. I didn't do the things I needed to do to be successful because no one ever told me that I could be successful. No one told me that I could do something different and have a different outcome. And here's the crazy thing. Like, I didn't get it really until I was probably 50 years old. I'm 58 now, so that was only 8 years ago. Like, I was doing all the things that I shouldn't be doing, and we don't need to get into all of those, but all the things I shouldn't be doing, up to and including ruining my first marriage because I thought there was something better out there. And then seeing my second marriage dissolve because there were unresolved issues there. It wasn't until I met my wife, Alexis, and her father was a retired financial planner. And so she lived her whole life knowing that you take care of your finances, and when you do that, everything else falls in line. She really changed my thought process from thinking I'm always going to have to be in debt. I'm always going to have to wonder what I'm doing next and live hand in mouth. And it's not like I wasn't making good money. I had a great job. I was just irresponsible with what I was doing. And it wasn't until somebody told me, you don't have to be irresponsible. You can be successful. We all need that person in our life that does that. You did that for this kid, right? In lucky you got to have what I call it's a wonderful life moment, where you don't have to jump off a bridge to find out how your life impacts others. You got to see it right in that kid's eyes. My wife gets to see it every day because you know what? We are financially free. I don't owe money to anybody but the mortgage company on my house, and that'll be paid off within 10 years, right? I don't want to sound like certain other people who write books about this. That conversation that her and I had together before we got married changed my life, right? Because no one ever told me that I didn't have to live that way until then. And I can't even describe the amount of freedom in my mind when I fixed that one part of my life that suddenly started to kind of repair some of the other parts of my life. And I wasn't thinking and doing the things that I used to do to try and get that gratification. I'm happy in my marriage. I'm happy in my life. My kids are successful. We have great relationships. I have a great relationship with my family, with my father, all of that. But it all changed because someone told me it could.
That, like, I'm going to try to articulate this correctly. That is such an incredibly profound thing to sit and think about, that, let's say, of the power that conversation can have. You are not even aware of the limiting beliefs that you have brought up since your childhood until they hit you like that, and it's a light switch moment. It's like I witnessed that kid sit on the bench, and for the first time in 18 years of his life, his brain said, wait, maybe I'm not destined for that? Maybe I could be something more? And you're telling the exact same story. Up until 50 years of your life, part of your identity is I'm not that responsible with money, or I can't fully depend on myself to not make the wrong decisions in these areas. It wasn't until someone you love sat you down, and maybe love is a necessary ingredient, or admiration or respect, whatever word you would fill the blank with. Maybe that's a necessary ingredient that opens the person up enough to the vulnerability to like really let the words penetrate past like your response mechanism to go, wait, you really think that maybe I could change? Because like how many people at 50, Bill, are going to say it's just who I am, it's how I've always been, it's how I've always done things, or they're going to take it as such a personal attack that there's no way they're going to adjust their course, because they're going to take it as like, oh yeah, well, you need to fix these things about you, instead of you're right. And you know what? My life would be better if I stop self-sabotaging. I stop putting myself back every time I make progress. I take 10 steps forward, and here I go taking 7 back just because I think that I have to. That is like this part of this conversation. If people would sit down and talk to their loved ones more and have difficult conversation about the dark things, about the things you don't want to confront. No grown man wants to sit down with his woman and say, I fucking suck at keeping my budget in order, and I am terrible with money, and I am failing our family by not taking this as a responsibility of mine. But if you can do that, and you can have that conversation, and then you get around the right people, that's how you begin to make progress. That's how you begin to put things in order. And then at one point in time, once you are finally far enough removed from it, which is what you just said, there is a level of relief to like, I cannot believe that I struggled with that problem for so long, because, like I said, it's a part of your identity, or it's a fear. You think at some level that you are inadequate or incapable of handling that fear. So what you do is you avoid it because you don't want to lose the battle to it. You almost don't want it to be proven true that you are just incapable. So you just kind of dance around it and you don't confront the demon. Right before the podcast, I said it'd be like if you had arachnophobia and there was a spider in the room. And every time, if your wife said, there's a spider, I need you to handle that, you ran from it, or you just got away from it, or you pretended it. I don't see it. Where? What are you talking about? Well, I don't see one. It gets worse. Your life is a reflection. To bounce back to an old pro fighter that used to be on this team, I tend to be the coach, and I'm the one that's trying to help these kids. One time we were having a conversation. He said, no, James, what young people need to realize is you either face your fears, or you live a life that is a result of what not facing your fears looks like. There is no two choices. It's either you are facing your fears, or your life is a product of what it looks like when you don't face your fears. You don't get to just float this line of like, oh, I don't want to confront it right now. You are. You're choosing to let that fear shackle you. And then your wife, out of love, said, I actually think not only are you brave enough to confront that fear, you could probably walk over to that spider, and you know what? You're a big guy. I bet you could go solve that problem if you can find the courage to do so. The moment you kill that first spider, it's a relief. It's the moment you started to put your budget in order and you're sitting back going, are we getting ahead? Am I not stressed? Am I not going underwater right now? That's a life-changing moment. And it can alter you forever, because the moment you confront one major fear, there's a part of your brain that says, maybe I can confront another inadequacy. The couple marriages that didn't work out because I made the wrong decisions. What if I can make better decisions this time? I didn't think I'd ever get my budget in order. I got that done. Maybe it's time to bring the best bill to light. You know what I mean? Like, if people could understand how, God, what's the right word? How noble, how important, how necessary it is to look at those things that you don't want to confront, their lives would be tenfold better, if not more. So anything else you'd like to speak to this topic, and just any other areas you want to talk? I think this is how I want this podcast to be today. Just these genuine things that if people, it took you to 50 years of your life. What if your son got to understand that at 20 because he witnessed his father live that example? Right. What if we got to reach through our words people that are sitting at home and they go, you know what? I damn well know the things that I'm not good at. And I know the things that keep me awake at night if I choose to listen to my brain. And I know what I don't want to evaluate in my life. But you know what? Maybe I should. You want to talk about profound change? That's where it comes from.
Well, and I love the discussion about fear. I spent some time in therapy, and we'll talk about how I got there. But one of the things my therapist told me, love Karen because she's totally honest. She's brutally honest with me. She goes, you practice avoidance. You practice avoidance. I see it in all of these things. And she pointed out the things that I was practicing avoidance in. And one of the things that I've taught my kids, even before I realized I was practicing avoidance, is I said, I've always told my kids, if there's something you don't want to do, and you don't want to do it because you just don't want to do it, I'm cool with that. But if you don't want to do it because you're afraid to do it, that's not good. You cannot live your life avoiding things because you're afraid of them. You can't. And here I was, Mr. Hypocrite, doing exactly that. But yeah, you have to confront those things head on, whether it's the poor choices you made or whether it's the poor choices you're making. And here's the thing. I will tell anyone that listens to this, it is never too late. I don't care if you're 30 or if you're 80. You can always make a change to make it better for yourself. It is never too late for that. And here's why. I got up January 1st of this year, and I stepped on the scale, and I weighed 261 pounds. That's the most I've weighed in my entire life. I spent my whole childhood being the fat kid, my whole childhood. And it wasn't until I got close to adulthood where I lost all that weight. And here I am gaining it back, eating all the stuff I'm not supposed to be eating, sitting on the couch, not doing anything. And I said, I can't do this anymore. Like, I will weigh 500 pounds by the end of this year if I don't change something. So I changed something. I changed what I ate. I went to my doctor. I go to the gym 3 days a week now. Yeah, I'm 58. I can't lift weights like I did when I was 20 right now, but I'm going to be able to because I'm going to get back to that. And I have to do that. I have to do that because I have to be healthy for my kids. I have to be healthy for my wife. I have to be healthy for me. I have to set that example for the people around me that it doesn't matter how fat you are or how lazy you are or how you've screwed up your life with the stuff you've put in your face or how far down you think you've sunk in whatever it is. You can always get out of it. And I'm fortunate because I don't have anyone that's going to pull me out of a hole, but I have tons of people who climb in the hole with me and help me through whatever I'm going through. So do I go to the gym by myself? No. My wife goes, and guess what? We hold each other accountable. Now, this last week, we suffered a loss in our family. And so really, it's been about 2 weeks since we've been to the gym. We were sitting on the couch last night. We're both totally exhausted because we haven't slept. And she looked at me and she goes, we have to get back to the gym. We have to get back in there and do this, right? Now, to a lot of people listening to this, we are old people. We're in our 50s. But you have to do it. And if you're younger than me, go do it. If you're older than me, go do it. But you can make that change. The first time you walk into that gym after not having been in there for a long time, you're not going to bench your body weight. You could bench the bar, but no one in there is going to laugh at you. No one. They're going to respect you because you're in there doing it. The people that are laughing at you are the people who are watching you ruin your life on the couch while you eat a bag of chips.
Man, I'm telling you what, Bill. I knew this podcast was going to be good. And before we started recording, I was like, man, there's just so many things that we can talk about on this episode. But it's like these are profound conversations that can apply to everyone. It
Yes.
doesn't matter who you are. It also doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter how far you have sunken from the person that you believe you should be, or how far you are from your prime, or how far you've slipped from knowing the path that you should walk. The whole point is the moment you can start to march back up, you'll start to get the feelings again that you're capable, that you are worthy, that you can make things better. And you see the results of your work. You know what I mean? It's like it's a compounding effect on the way down, but it's also a compounding effect on the way up. You get yourself off the couch and you go to the gym that first time. When you get back, you're damn proud of yourself. You said, you know what? We did it. Despite just lost my brother, despite this, despite that, we're moving in the direction that I know we should go. And in a neurochemical sense, your brain releases dopamine based on witnessing you move in the directions of things that you hold as objectives. Like if you say, this is the type of man I want to be, and you can get yourself to move in that direction, your brain literally will give you more dopamine and the chemicals that you need to make you feel better, which then reinforces your ability to do that because we are driven by our feelings. When you're at the pit, at the bottom, at the rock bottom, that is the hardest place you will ever be. But you don't have to even go to the gym. You have to make one step above where you are right now. If you have a horribly messy room and like you walk in there every day and it's a hellhole, there's shit everywhere. Maybe your first step is just starting to envision what would you do if you were to start? And then the next day, you move one pile to one side of the room. And then the next day, you say, I'm just going to sort from what's going straight to the trash and what I'm going to keep. And then you get that done. Next thing you know, you're rolling. And all of a sudden, you're proving to yourself, even from your worst, even from your lowest, even through all the pain and darkness and sadness, you can still make progress. And like, there's healing in that. But now you also have the golden ticket. I'm going to shout that out really quick. If you can find people that love you and support you, even when you're not your best you, and can help you pick yourself back up when maybe you can't, that is something that every man searches for. I'm sure every woman searches for it too, but I will say as men, we try to be the men that want to take on all the difficulty and all the conflict. And I don't ever want to put any of my burdens on my fiance or on her son. Like I want to carry the weight of the world for my family because I hold it as a responsibility of mine to be that type of man. But you know what I really want is to know that if I'm ever slipping a little bit, that I've got a loving partner by my side that says, hey, like I'm here for you. Let's do it together. You got the golden ticket with that. Like hearing that story and knowing that your wife she pushed you to be more in your finances. You did it. Mm-hmm. Now you're a better man for yourself and for her and for your children and for your legacy. You're going through an extremely painful loss of your brother. It's so much easier to sit on the couch. Every bit of your soul and your limbic system is like, no, I can't do it today. Don't have the energy. Can't get off the couch. I need to just wallow in this pain. And you know what? It's not even that you're wrong. But you have a woman by your side that says, but you're more than that, Bill. Mm-hmm. We're going to go. And then when you got back home from that, how did that feel? When you guys got back up and you did it regardless, despite all the pain, despite all the setback, you're like, you know what? That was the right answer.
Oh, yeah. Sleep better at night.
And that men need peace in their mind. Like we will confront demons. We will fight wars. Men throughout human history, and I'm sure when I say men, I just mean people. But like throughout human history, people confront difficulty. But you need a level of peace, and that can come from just knowing you have someone that loves you by your side that says, I believe in you. That woman freed you from a shackle you had your entire life by looking at you and saying, I believe in your ability to get through this.
Absolutely. I want to say something on that, though. This really kind of keyed something in my head. You know, yeah, Alexis Krieger, she is the golden ticket. Well, I'm going to tell you this right now. If you don't have the golden ticket, it's because you chose not to, right? It's the people that you surround yourself with that make you successful or not successful. You have to be careful about who you choose to spend your time with because those people will either lift you up or they will drag you down. And misery loves company, right? When you were starting out with your company, when I was starting out with my company, there were those people who were like, are you sure you want to do this? Okay, those people are not they're not in my choir anymore, right? They're gone. And sometimes we have friendships that we have to let go of, and we're afraid to let go of friendships. But people come and go out of our lives for reasons. Everything that has happened to us in our entire lives has brought us to this point where we're sitting right now having this conversation. And there are people who were in my life that I loved, but at some point they were not, I didn't need them in my life anymore because they were not beneficial to me or themselves with what they were doing. And so there's no luck in any of this. You choose the people who are around you. You choose what you're going to listen to. It's right up to you. Choose what you're going to put on your plate for dinner at night. Those are all choices that you make. I chose to pursue this woman because I knew there was something about her. She was positive. She was smart. And the other thing is, as a man, you have to have a woman who's not going to find you weak on that day when you're crying your eyes out on her shoulder. You have to be able to get up from that, and she has to still see you as a man. And if she does not, you don't need her. And I'll say the same thing for men. Women, when you are picking your partner, when you are picking your partner, whatever that means to you, pick the right partner. Pick the person who's going to be there for you. Pick the person who's going to call you out. Pick the person who's going to make you accountable. Pick the person who is going to be best for you, and you're going to be best for them. So don't count it on luck, and don't say, oh, well, I made a mistake in this marriage or I made a mistake in that relationship. No, you chose to be in that relationship. You chose that person to put in your life, and they either brought you up or they did not. And if they did not, you need to get them out of your life. It's like putting toxins in your body to have the wrong people around you.
100%. If you're poisoning yourself over and over and wondering why you're sick or why you're not healthy, it's not shocking. You're not healthy because you're poisoning yourself. Right. And you just made a really good point. Like, if your partner doesn't want to see your best come to life and they witness any struggle you have as like, it turns to resentment, it turns to bitterness, it turns to like, you should just have this shit together. It's like, is it easy to put your psychology into, supreme order and dominate in this world? Absolutely not. We are faced with a tremendous plethora of problems, stress, emotions, ups, guidance, the environment that you grew up in, the examples you've had in your life, the limiting beliefs that are deeply rooted in your mind. And it's like, if you're looking at your partner and just saying, well, they should be X, Y, and Z, first of all, the number one thing you should be doing is looking in your own mirror and saying, am I the type of person that brings out the best in others? If I love this person, am I setting an example with the way that I live and the way that I interact with them that pulls greatness out of them? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's easy to tell your son, to tell others, you should do ABC. It's very hard to do ABC. It's very easy to be in a relationship and say, well, she should be doing blah, blah, blah. Are you the type of man that you should be yet? And if you both focus on bringing out the best in yourselves, you can then bring out the best in each other. Your wife had these qualities and this positive aura and was able to show you love and was able to maintain respect for you and believed that despite what she might see right now in certain circumstances, she knows on the other side of that there's a Bill that can be brought to life that is far superior to that. She's not witnessing Bill at his best. She's witnessing a degree of you. And her goal as someone that loves you is to bring that best you to life. If people would view their relationships that way and view their life that way, we would all enhance each other. You know what I'm saying? But it's almost like when you have a lot of insecurities and you have a lot of failures and you have a lot of things, you want to point out the ones in others just to let them know, hey, you're flawed too.
Right.
No. Right. That's the dragging each other down.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, you're trying to anchor me, I'll anchor you. You can uplift each other. You can understand that we're all broken people. There's nobody walking the face of this earth that is a perfect person that does the right thing every time, that has all of the skills that they need, that's perfectly articulate and handles every complex situation and manages their emotions. That doesn't exist. But you want to put yourself in environments where people are trying to bring that out. The newest saying I've been saying to my team and all the new people that come in this building, I adopted it about a year ago, and I've started to say this to everyone. The primary thing that you need to have to be in this building, I don't care about your age, don't care about your fitness level, don't care about your race, don't care about your social status. You know what I care about? Are you trying to aim up in your life, and do you want to see others aim up and win? If you don't have that as the base of who you are, if you're trying to aim down, you want to be a degenerate, you want to hurt people, you want to go out and do the wrong things, you don't really care about the path you walk, you don't care about your impact on others, or you don't want to see others succeed. You want to see others fail. If you're not on that, you don't belong here. And you'll feel ostracized by here very quickly, because we are people trying to put our lives in order. We're trying to, if I see you show up for punches and crunches, I am just as happy to see you in the class as I am my professional fighter that shows up, because I see a man that is showing up to an environment trying to better his life. And if you cut out all the excess, you cut out the names we call ourselves, you cut out the different stories, that's the same. Is people trying to better themselves and better this life. So that's the bare minimum to be in this building now. And I tell people right off the bat, if you're not wanting to aim up, I can't tell you to aim up. I can suggest that you should aim up. I can make a case for why it's better to aim up. I can tell you that there's more to bring to the surface of you than you could ever imagine. And if you were to do that, you would live a level of fulfillment that you can't even imagine. I can tell you all that. But if you don't want to aim up, you need to aim out. You need to leave. I will refund your money on the spot and say, please go somewhere else until you decide at the bare minimum, no matter what you've done, no matter your background, no matter what you've gone through, at the bare minimum, you need to aim up. And I've been saying that, and it's like our culture is the best it's ever been. And maybe because that is a pinnacle belief that we all hold to be true.
Right. Not just a phrase on a poster,
No.
right? But we live this. And, you know, I think there's this old cliche out there that some guy once said, hey, I want to be the man that my dog thinks I am, right? Right? So I was thinking about this the other day, and I thought, I want to be the man that my wife thinks I am. I want to be the man that my kids think I am. You know what's important about that? If I pick the wrong person and I try to be the man they think I am, right? I'm not going to be the man that I could be. So that's why it's so important to pick the people around you. You want to be the man they think you are? They better be thinking the right things, or you need to find new people.
Bill, if you can find a way to articulate that perfectly and put it in a clip, that's a viral clip, because the wrong people will look at every one of your failures, setbacks, problems, and the man they think you are will be, that is you. You're no good. You're not responsible. You can't get your things in order. You're lazy. You're this, you're that. The people that love you or the people that support you, they don't see that as you. They see that as struggles that Bill is dealing with. The version of you is what they're trying to bring to life. The version of you is the Bill that is going to come out through the lessons. You just perfectly summed up something I've had those thoughts, but I've never made it that simple. People that love you, or the right people to keep around you, are the people that see your potential as you. They don't look at all your failures and setbacks and problems as, well, that must be all he's worth.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Right. Right. And let's talk about potential for a minute, because you know what? Potential is bullshit. Potential means nothing if you don't live up to it, right? But I love that people can see who you could be. But it's up to you to live up to that. Because I hear about this. I hear this all the time. My daughter's a school teacher, so you always hear, oh, you know, little Johnny has great potential. Bullshit. Either little Johnny's successful or he's not. Potential means nothing.
Let's say it this way. Potential exists indefinitely for every single human being ever. It's like potential energy. Like, objects can have potential energy, but if they don't begin to move to kinetic energy, they're not moving. So if you want to talk about potential, say it this way. Yes, every human being on earth has endless potential, but are you chasing that potential? Are you arguably moving against you're learning lessons from your failures, you're putting your life in order, you're taking on responsibility, you're judging your actions with the truth. That's going to lead us into a perfect topic. The truth is the ultimate weapon to put your life in order. A lot of people now, they want to live in delusions. Mm-hmm. Because if they look at the objective truth of their lives, it's going to cripple them. It's going to crush them. It's going to tell them that you're a fraction of the person that you should be. The truth can set you free, but at first it's going to beat the shit out of you. There's no other way to say it. The truth, at 50 years of age, came down on you like a sledgehammer. The only reason you survived the beating is because of the people that were in your life. Mm-hmm. If that truth would have came from the wrong people, you might have gone to a route of suicide. The truth can break you to a point where it can say your inadequacies are so extreme that why are you even here? You're a failure. You suck. You're a fraction of the man that you should be. But if you can endure the pain of the truth and you can look at yourself objectively and you can say, what is the first step that I need to take that moves me in the right direction? That's the secret. That's the path. That's the freedom. That's like what ancient texts have talked about when they say, like, that is the way. But first, it's going to hurt. Yeah. It's easy to tell your son, chase your dream, buddy. Be all you can be. It's extremely hard to look at the truth of your life and say, how do I put this in order? So I love what you just said. Listen, potential. Yeah, you have it. Great. What are you going to do about it? Mm-hmm. Are you going to bring it to life? You're going to bring 5% of your potential into existence, and that's what your legacy is going to be? We're going to find out what my son could have been if he pursued 5% of the man he should be. Or what about if you aim at 20? What if you aim at 100%, knowing that you will never achieve perfection or an ideal standard? But if you aim at 100, that's like if you shoot for the moon, you'll end up among the stars. Right. If you aim at 100%, what you will have to become in the process by aiming at an ideal is the success in itself. That is the reward. Because let's say you only make it to 80% of what Bill could have been. You would be so proud of your journey. You would be a tremendous human being. You will have gone down a worthy path. The people in your life will look at you, not hypocritically. Your son and daughter would look up to you and go, my father really did it. Despite 50 years of age, he put himself in order. And you know what? You said earlier in this podcast, even if you're 80 years of age, we're all heading to the same destination. Right. And we don't know if there's a chapter 2. But I tell you what, if you can get to peace in your mind because you moved yourself in the right direction, you're proud of the man that you are, that's a peace that is, there's no amount of money on earth, there's no amount of anything, drugs, alcohol, that could ever give you the feeling of, I'm proud of the path that I've walked in this life. And if you can get to that point, that's freeing. You can take on any demons. You can confront any evil. You can stand, like, there's something about, in the very beginning of the Bible, it talks about, like, standing naked with God. And it's like being just who you are in all of your flaws, completely exposed to the universe, and being okay with that. Yeah. If you could learn the ancient wisdom of that and to seek that person, this life becomes an adventure. And your setbacks, I tell a lot of my people, you know how you've really put your life in order? When you can look back at your most painful moments and you're happy they existed because they were necessary to get you to where you are now. If I had a time machine, I would go back and I would change some of the things that have happened in my life. But you know what? If I did that, there would be a butterfly effect, and the man that would sit here today would be a fraction of the man that I am. So it's like, that's what you're pursuing. That's what you're chasing. And if you view your life that way, your life is an odyssey. It's an epic. It is something worth putting energy into. When you get up in the morning, it's worth fighting to bring that man into existence. And if we lived like that, and we taught our children to live like that, and we told people that just because you've made mistakes in the past doesn't mean you're broken forever, life would get better for countless people, man. Countless people. I mean, I don't want to go into the suicide that just rocked your family, but how many people are stuck in the patterns of thought or behavior or believe that they are only worth a certain thing, that drink themselves to death or, allow their health to get to such a condition that they perish. If you ask them objectively, do you want to die of a heart attack? Do you want to die of these horrific ways to go? Do you want to be on a breathing machine for your last days? Every human being would say no. But yet the limiting belief or the fear is so profound in their brain that they never confront it by actually taking action. You can say what you want to do, doesn't do anything.
Right.
You have to do it.
Right. So let's talk about that a little bit. As I told you earlier, that we lost our brother last Tuesday morning, actually. He had struggled with congestive heart failure since 2014, but he refused to listen to what the doctors were telling him and didn't take his medication and didn't do the things that he needed to do to prolong his life. And he was successful. He was a musician, an amazing musician. I've been getting calls from people I don't even know. Like, hey, I played in a band with your brother, and we've got these recordings or these things happen. He was one of the smartest people I know. He wanted to get into web development and IT. So he taught himself everything he needed to know and opened up a computer store and was very successful there. He was running a web development business right up until the end. In fact, for the nonprofit that I actually run, he did all of my web development and all my IT for me. And so one of the smartest dumb people that I know, or one of the dumbest smart people, however you want to look at that. But I remember the last few days that he was alive, his biggest fear was dying. He didn't want to die, but he didn't want to do the things necessary not to die. And at some point, he just, you could see it the last day that we were with him. He just kind of resigned himself to the fact that he was going to die. And I think what happened was when he was initially diagnosed, they said, you got 5 or 6 years to live. And he outlived it. And I think somewhere in the back of his mind, he thought he was on borrowed time. And so he just stopped doing the things he needed to do because he figured he was going to go anyway. And so, I mean, there's lots of ways to kill yourself. That's just one of them. But he lived an epic life when he was at his pinnacle. But he allowed his demons to overtake him. We lived a rough childhood. He had some really bad things happen to him. He survived cancer and some other things, and all of that just to stop taking his medication and let himself go. I think even though he was afraid to die, he was ready to die. And so it was very difficult. It's still hard. My sister and her family are here visiting, and we're getting ready to kind of clear out his house and take care of the rest of his affairs. And my sister and I drove to his house today before I came here, and we left everyone else at home. It was just my sister and I, and we just sat and we talked, and we had this really great conversation about my brother and about his life. And so we are going to choose to think about the things that he did that were good. We're going to choose to remember that part of his life and not what happened to him later on. But ultimately, I'm not really speaking ill of the dead when I say this, but ultimately he chose the path that he took, and he chose to be where he's at right now. And the rest of us are just left to pick up those pieces. And so when I say there's more than one way to commit suicide, I will share with you that post-deployment, so I deployed to Iraq in 2006. And, I remember the day I left, and I remember the day I came home. I stepped off the battlefield on October 13th of 2007, and I came home. And I was in the National Guard, and so there was no real transition. I came home, and 2 weeks later, I'm driving to work, right? I live in Holt, and I'm driving to my office on Willow Street in Lansing. And I just remember this day. It was in November, and it was one of those Michigan like November days where it's like sunny, but it's still crisp out. It's kind of the kind of day that I actually live for. And I get to work, and I park my car, and I lock it up, and I'm walking into the building. And the first thought in my mind is, man, this is going to be a beautiful day. But not for the reason you're probably thinking, or anyone listening to this is probably thinking, right? It was going to be a beautiful day, not because it was a crisp fall day or the birds were chirping or all the cool things that happened in Michigan. It was going to be a beautiful day because no one shot at me and nothing blew up on my way to work. And my very next thought was, holy shit, I'm crazy, because no one thinks like this. And so I went down this downward spiral of PTSD, panic attacks, depression. I watched friends of mine kill themselves. Since I've gotten home, I've buried someone every year to suicide. So it's real. It's happening, and it's especially real for our veterans. But I really lived with this probably for 6 to 8 months. And I remember doing things like sitting at the dining room table playing a game with my kids. I remember the game, but we were playing Sorry. And my youngest daughter, who likes to pick on my oldest daughter, kept sending my oldest daughter back. If you ever played this game, it's the most aggravating freaking game you'll ever play. And I remember my oldest daughter was starting to get upset about it, and my youngest daughter was picking on her. And they were kind of bickering, kids do that. And at some point, I stood up and I threw the game across the room and told them to shut the hell up. Because I was so frustrated, but I didn't know why. And I started having more and more panic attacks, and I didn't know what they were. I'd be in the shower, I'd be driving somewhere, I'd be having lunch, and and I didn't really care about other people's problems because your problems were nowhere near as bad as my problems were. And it was just this whole spiral thing going on. And one day, it was in the summer of 2000, must have been 2008, summer. My daughters were outside jumping on the trampoline with their friends. And my now ex-wife was out shopping or doing something. And I was up in my room, and I have guns. I'm a gun enthusiast. And so I went to my gun safe, which I hadn't gone to since I got back. And I cleaned all my guns, and I got everything taken care of. And I had this one particular gun, and I was putting it in the box, and in the bottom of the box was just a single 9mm round. And I sat down and I thought, I'm just so freaking tired right now. I don't want to feel this way anymore. The best way to describe it, I just wanted to go to sleep and not wake up. And before I knew what was really going on, I knew what I was doing, but I was going through this motion where I didn't feel like it was me doing it. I loaded the gun, and I put it in my mouth, and I had my finger on the trigger. And anyone that's familiar with me will know that I will tell you this. Someone called me on the phone. My cell phone was sitting right next to me. The phone goes off, and I damn near accidentally shot myself at this point because the phone's ringing. I got my finger on the trigger, so I put the gun down. I pick up the phone, and this is why I say it's so important to have people around you that love you and that want you to succeed. Because someone called me on the phone who I hadn't talked to in a while, and you know why they called me? They called me just to see how I was doing. Hey, Bill, what's up? How you doing? And I'm like, hey, Christy, and I lied because you get really good at lying when you're suicidal. And I lied, and I said, hey, I'm doing great. There's nothing wrong here, nothing to see.
Don't worry about me.
Yeah. I'm a man. I'm an army man. I just spent a year in combat. Nothing's gonna hurt me. Nothing's gonna bother me. Except I had harbored the fact that anyone who had gotten injured under my command got injured because they were doing what I asked them to do. And so I had all of this stuff going on in my head. But I put the gun away, and I locked it in the safe. And I thought, man, I really do need to get some help. So I am not lying. I picked up the phone book. They still existed at the time. I picked up the phone book. I just flipped open the yellow pages, and I put my finger down. And, I'm not doing commercials for anybody, but the Wellness Institute of Michigan, led by Karen Gallagher, saved my life. She's not a veteran. She doesn't have any veterans in her family. I went to go see her, and she I don't know the best. She unfucked my head. Like, she helped me see what was going on. She helped me get through all of that. And I was in therapy for a long, long time. And unwound a lot of things, not just my military stuff, but a lot of things that were just in there. But I learned a couple important lessons from that. One, that if you know a veteran and they've committed suicide, I'm going to tell you something that's not popular. There's nothing you could have done. When someone decides they're going to do it, they don't follow the textbook. They don't give all their stuff away. They don't do all the things. Now, some people do, and it's always good to look for those signs, but some people don't. And if they had found me in that bedroom dead, people would have scratched their heads. I was successful. I had a great job. For all appearances, I had a great marriage. I had great kids. I was living the American dream. People would have scratched their heads like, what the hell happened? And I know this because not 6 months before that, I was standing in line at Sears to return an item, and I ran into a guy that I had served with. And he was getting married. He was finishing his college degree. He had just gotten a job. And 2 weeks later, he put on his dress blue uniform and walked into the Grand River and killed himself, and I had to go to his funeral. Everyone scratched their head because no one saw it coming. So sometimes it just pays to pick up the phone and call somebody. But if you don't surround yourself with the right people, no one's going to pick up that phone and call you because they're either self-absorbed or they believe your BS that you're fine. People who know you, and they will know when you're not right, and they will pick up the phone and they will call you. And so I tell people, if you get that urge to call somebody you haven't talked to in a while, call them. Don't live with the fact that you didn't. And if you didn't call them and they did commit suicide, not your fault. Not your fault. That's a decision that they made based on how they were feeling at the time. And so that's my story. That's why I'm here today.
That's the thing about like the mind, man, is like for as much as it is the ultimate tool to fix your life, it can also be hell, and it can be a prison cell. And like, people that are not religious will think that, oh, I don't really believe in hell. Hell can exist every day in between your ears, and nobody can know. That's the weird part, is you do, because when you're in hell and you're suffering tremendously, you can't even imagine putting the pain and suffering onto others, or having them pity you, or having them look at you as weak, or having them, you know what I mean? Like, oh, that's more burden. That's not, they might think they're lightening the load. That's stacking it, because now you're viewed as a failure publicly instead of in between your own ears.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So there's an old quote that's something like, as above, so below. Like, if you're fucked up internally, it doesn't matter what the outside circumstances look like from a third-party perspective. All the things, like when you were listening, he's getting married, it's not relevant.
Right.
You can be a multimillionaire, successful kids, you got money in the bank, you're traveling the world, and you can want to die every day.
He was standing in that line knowing that he was going to do this, right? He didn't just get up one morning and put that uniform on. I know, because I didn't just get up one day and try and kill myself. So when I'm talking to this guy in this line, he had every opportunity to say something to me. And I asked all the right questions, but he did it anyway.
Yeah, but Bill, we're taught, or maybe it's just instinctual, that you try to hide your pain.
Yes.
You try to disguise your struggles. You don't want people to see that fallible version of yourself, the flawed, broken. You don't want that to be your face, because you want to be the healed person. You want to be the person that brings other people up. You want to be the person that can lead your family and be there for a friend. But at times, like when you're broken, you're just broken. And it's okay. It's not broken and unable to be repaired. This goes back to the power of conversation. You said you sat down and you were talking to that woman, and it's like, it's the messy room. And at first, she just might need you to look at the fact that it's just a messy room, and it's going to remain that way or get worse until you start taking action to fix the room, or at least acknowledge what you don't like about the room, because clearly you don't like it. You're not just happy with it. A lot of times people are like, oh, I don't care. Do you really not care? Or are you saying that because confronting the problem is much scarier and much darker? Sometimes, going back to your brother's story, not to be dark here, but sometimes the fear of death is less than the fear of what you would have to go through to change. Right. The fear of death is not as difficult as confronting the pains of your life and looking them in the face and trying to take on those battles. You know what? You know the problems, you know the pain, you know the failure, but like, you don't know what the road looks like to recovery. So it's like, you know what? I just don't have it in me to walk it. You don't want to find out that you're inadequate and you can't walk it. You know what I mean? It's almost like you're not willing to take that risk. It's easier to just push it all off. I love that you just told that part of your story, because some of the most powerful people I've ever met, if you can stare death straight in the face and you get to the point in your life, I've been to the point in my life where I looked at killing myself and ending it and stopping the pain, and it's just over. It's almost, in a weird way, I referred to peace earlier in this conversation. I said what people are searching for is like a peace within their mind. If you ever stare death in the face long enough and you think that that's the answer to peace, you're likely to go that road. Mm-hmm. For some reason, I got to that moment too and decided, no, I'm good. You know what it is? It's almost like there's this massive, insurmountable demon or problem that exists right to your left, and it is the path that you're supposed to walk. But you don't think that you can fight and defeat this thing. This blocks your path. It is in the way. And this way is just jumping off the cliff. And you know what? You might say, I don't know the pain that I'm going to endure trying to get past this thing. I know that although there might be a quick moment of pain here, it's all going to be over when I hit the ground. And it's like, some people say it's just easier to jump off the cliff because they don't think they can confront the demons or the pains that they have to go through, or they don't even know how to go about confronting it. Right. I'm here to tell you, and you'd be here to tell the people, try to walk that path. You still have value for the world. Your brother still had tremendous gifts that he could have brought to this world. Can you imagine the transformative effect that it could have had on his environment, his mind, his family, his legacy, if he had children, if he was to walk to say, you know what, despite all of the pain I've gone through, despite everything I've endured, I'm going to try to get it back together. I'm going to pick myself off this couch. A day at a time, I'm going to try to get my health back in order. I'm going to try to be more than what I am right now, no matter what that looks like. Even if to you it's the smallest step in the world, I'm going to try to do it. He still could have brought tremendous light to the world. So like that's what I'm trying to tell people is, and what you would tell people, walk the path. Despite how dark or how difficult, there's still a potential for light if you're still in the fight. There's still a potential. And I have a painting. It's funny. Well, not funny. This conversation, I don't talk about this painting much at my house. But on my game room, I'm a very extreme person. I'm a very over the top person.
I couldn't tell.
You probably
couldn't tell, not at all.
I'm a very eccentric, over the top person because I don't know. It helps turn life into that odyssey, into this story, into this grand adventure. That's what gives me my visions of grandeur. I have beliefs that are so delusional to most people, and that's probably why I can make things come true that they don't. I have a painting where it's 3 little hero characters. There's a samurai, a woman in armor, and a knight in shining armor, and it's the size of my entire. It's this wall, imagine, in one mural that I had painted in my house, and the samurai is a representation of me, like the man that's trying to be a warrior in his life against the darkness. The woman in armor is my fiance. She's trying to be protected from the pains of the world. She's wearing her armor. She doesn't want to be exposed to how things could hurt, and she wants to just be protected, but she's at my side. And then there's a knight in shining armor representing her son, like the hope for the world, the future, the kid that could take all the lessons and bring forth more than what I could have ever brought forth to the world, or the potential that exists. Okay, that's the representation of that. And in front of these 3 characters, there is a devil, demon-sized character that is larger than me and you, standing with his arms open like this, about as scary as you could imagine. I told the artist, I said, I want you to make this as horrifically, fearsome as. I want you to make this the personification of fear. Because what I want to look at every day that I see this is that the people, and they're on a little stone path that dead ends to the demon. And the point is, no matter the fears or pains or difficulties of your life, you have to take a shoulders back, chest up approach and say, I don't know if I'm going to get through this, and I don't know how bad I'm going to get burned during the process. But what I have to do is try to walk through it, because the version of me that the world deserves, that I deserve, that my family deserves, exists on the other side of this fear. And if I have to die in the process of trying to bring out the best in me, then so be it. But turning around and jumping off the cliff is not an option. Right. I'm going to keep walking forward. And it ties back to my days of nearly committing suicide. And it ties back to the broken kid. It ties back to when I believed that I was not adequate enough to handle the pain of life. And now I feel unbreakable. I don't believe that there's anything. I might get burned. I might get my ass beat. That demon might destroy me at a period. But if I've got loving people in my life, and I have self-belief, and I have courage, and I have resiliency, I'm fighting the battle. And you know what? It's working out. You when you confront it, generally what you find is the fear is not as insane as you thought it was. There's Alex Hormozy said a quote one time that hit me really hard, where he said, fear is this massive ocean that's, or let's say it's right in your path. It's a mile wide, but it's an inch deep. When you finally take the step in and you start confronting the fear, and what you find is, this is not what I thought it was. This insurmountable challenge appeared to be unbeatable, unbreakable. There's no way, if I was speaking from your brother's consciousness, there's no way I can put myself. Look at what I've been through. Look at the pain I've endured. Look at the losses that I've had. Look at the resentment that I still have in my heart. Look at, the failures I've faced. There's no way I can walk across that. You know what? That's not the truth. You still can face it. You can still bring tremendous light to the world. And you unlocking that version of yourself creates ripple effects on every single person that you come in contact with, because that version of you now exists. It's not you telling your kids what to do. It's you showing your kids what to do. Every place that you show up, you're that version of the man, in my painting, the samurai that confronts the evil and pain of the world and endures the storm. If more people could learn, I'm a fighter literally and metaphysically,
Right.
but every human being on this earth has the potential to be a fighter with their spirit. And the human spirit is unfucking breakable if you can tap into it the right way. But it's like we get away from that. We believe our stories. We believe we're victims of circumstance. We think that we are the inadequate results that we've currently produced. We don't realize that we are the person that exists beyond those things, but we have to be in environments and mindsets and ideologies that allow us to get through it. So if there's one thing that's been profound about this podcast, it's like, guys, evaluate your life, evaluate your beliefs, look at your shortcomings. Everything you don't want to analyze about your life, the secrets to your happiness reside in that area. You're not going to donuts and sitting on the couch and happiness and beers your way to the man that you're supposed to be.
Right.
You're going to have to do it. You're going to have to pick up your sword. You're going to have to face the demons, and you're going to have to march through them. And that's the secret. If there's one secret in life for why I believe I'm successful, it's because I pick up the sword. Mm-hmm. And not to hurt others, but to confront the things that make me lesser. Period. That's how it works. So, Bill, by the way, we've shot another hour and 15 minutes, and I want to go another 2 hours. The only reason I might have to cap this is I have a 1 o'clock appointment on the other side of Brighton.
All right.
But I don't even mind texting them and saying I'm going to be a little bit late. Is there anything else that you think that is really important that you'd love to cover in this podcast? And then honestly, I don't know if you're up for it. Maybe another month, let's just sit down and talk again. Yeah. These type of conversations heal human beings, or they give the necessary ingredients for people to get the recipe right in their life to finally break through. And I don't care if this conversation doesn't affect one person, 1, 10, 100, or 1,000,000 one day. It's still worth having, because you will resonate differently and radiate a different energy, and I will do the same thing. And then when we go into our lives, it's not just your words.
Right.
You know the old quote that people don't remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. The more you get this thing right, the more that you radiate an energy that people want to be around, right? As long as they're people that want to aim up.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to accomplish. So if there's anything else you'd love to say on the podcast, we'll put it on now, and then, we'll wrap this episode up.
Yeah, there's just one other piece, and I'll be brief. When you talked about the power of conversation, one of the things that came out of my suicide attempt was I started listening to podcasts. But I started listening to the Moth Radio Hour on NPR, and these are people who tell true stories about themselves. And they're like 5 to 7 minute stories. And it's this whole competitive thing that goes on. You should check it out. But what I started listening to these podcasts, and then I found out that they do these things called story slams. There's one that happens in Ann Arbor like the third Tuesday of every month. So I started going to the story slams and listening, and I finally got up on stage, and I told the story that I told you today. And it was therapeutic for me, but I can't tell you how many people in the audience came up and said, gosh, I thought I was the only person that had ever gone through this. And what I found out was that many, many people have a story to tell. And so that's one of the things that I do today is I sit down with veterans and I record their stories for them. And then I give them a copy of it, and I keep a copy of it for other people to listen to understand where our veterans have been. And we don't just capture the time they were in the military; we capture the whole veteran, everything from early memories all the way through what are you doing today now that you're not in the military anymore. So if you want to hear those stories, check out veteransarchives.org. Veteransarchives.org. We're a nonprofit organization that captures the stories of our veterans. But please go out and listen to those because you'll learn something from them. We never charge a veteran a nickel for their stories. I pretty much funded this out of my wallet, so this is a plea for you to go listen to it and nothing else. And then if you know a veteran who's interested, have them fill out our form because I would love to sit down and talk with them. Because in everything that we have talked about on this episode and really the previous episode, this whole thing is about the power of conversation and the power of sharing our story. Because when we share our story, we get something from it. But the better part of it is there are people out there who you will never meet who will hear your story and it will resonate with them, and it will help them through a hard time. So I encourage people to share their stories with others.
100%, man. That's what this episode is going to be called, or if I'm going to reference it, it's going to be the power of conversation. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Sit down and talk to people that you love. Sit down and talk to your friends. Maybe sit down and talk to yourself. As weird as that is to say, sit alone in your room and ask yourself the questions that you don't really want to ask. But like, your brain knows the answers. If you're willing to be quiet and sit down and say like, man, like, why do I feel this way? Answers will come up. Mm-hmm. Something will whisper to you, you're not doing this right. You should be giving more of that. This thing makes you uncomfortable. You feel inadequate by this. This person around you makes you feel less than you are. Mm-hmm. You got to be willing to listen to those things. The power of conversation is huge. There's one more quote that I'm going to leave the listeners with that I want you to think about this, especially if you're someone that struggles. The way out of pain is through pain, not the avoidance of pain. You got to think about that quote. The way out of hell is through hell, not trying to avoid hell. You have to think about that. When you are in pain and you're in struggle, you have to go through it to escape it. When you have a fear or a phobia, you will never defeat it until you learn to confront it. So if you're in pain, the last thing you want to do is sit and deal with your pain and go through your pain. But it's my painting. The way out of pain is through pain. You're going to have to just embrace that fight. And what you will find is there is more to you than there was to the pain. There's more to you than there was the fear. There's more to you than there was the damage or setback, whatever it is. And if you can embrace that ideology and you live your life that way, you will find that you are far more than you could have ever imagined. And you almost owe it to the world to bring that person to life. Because if you do that, you will change your family, you will change your community, you will change everyone you interact with in a better way. So pick up your swords, get to work. You still have light. You still have a lot to bring to this world. And the world desperately needs it. The world needs healed people or those that are aiming up in their lives. And we don't need to compare our journeys. We don't need to say, oh, yeah, well, I'm here and you're here. That is not relevant. What is relevant is, are you aiming up and are you working to grow and bring more light into the world? And if the answer is yes, you're winning, period. So Bill Krieger, man, I tell you what, if we could have filmed the pre-podcast and this is a full-length feature film. We got a movie here, but this episode is the power of conversation. So thank you very much for joining me today, and, we'll wrap this up.
All right, my pleasure. Thank you.